Birds are naughty. Well, they're not really naughty, they're just being birds. But if they hang up by the end of the runway, fly into a jet engine and cause your plane to crash, that's naughty. If great big swarms of them come in and eat up all your crops, that's naughty. If a bird poops on my head, that's supposed to be good luck, but if it poops on my car, that's naughty. It turns out that all the things that you can buy to make birds go be naughty somewhere else don't work. If you put up a scarecrow, the birds will roost on it. You set off propane cannons, they'll habituate. You broadcast predator calls, they will learn to ignore it. They will even get used to packs of hangry wiener dogs. I'm Professor Mark Inders, Applied Science Department at William & Mary. I'm here with Elizabeth Simons, and we're in a little park next to campus that would have been George and Martha Washington's backyard back when they were young and in love. Elizabeth is both a PhD student in applied science and lead scientist at a local startup company that's commercializing some of our inventions. The trade name for the technology is SonicNets. It's benign bird deterrence. And you're just back from Colorado, right? So
yes.
What were you doing there?
So we just installed a system at an auxiliary Air Force Academy airstrip out in the middle of nowhere, Colorado. And we installed 22 individual SonicNets speakers that are omnidirectional and completely solar powered and off-grid.
Okay. But you guys have been a lot of other places recently. So where have you and the crew been?
Okay, so we recently went to Iowa Cooney Air Force Base, or not Air Force Base, Marine Corps Base in Japan, and installed speakers around a retention pond at the end of their runways there.
Yeah, they had a lovely pond at the end of the runway where birds like to come.
Mm-hmm.
Can be an issue.
Just a little bit.
You didn't go to Australia, but you got a bunch of systems in Australia.
Had a bunch of systems in Australia. Have a bunch of systems at fish farms in the southeast.
I heard about Mississippi. Fish farms in Mississippi?
Yes, fish farms in Mississippi.
Okay.
We also have a couple of systems in California. We have a big system at Plantel Nursery. There where they grow all of the seedlings that other places plant.
Okay.
And so there they were able to, using the SonicNets, completely take down their bird netting.
Ooh.
And they used to have 3 or 4 people on staff whose only job was to repair the bird netting.
Because bird netting is really expensive.
Because bird netting's really expensive.
And one tiny little hole and the birds sneak right in.
And so I don't think they fired them. I think they just have a different job now.
Okay. And you, early on, you took a bunch of trips back and forth to Memphis for a coal-fired power plant.
Yes, we were up in Arkansas at a power plant, again in the middle of nowhere, where we installed a bunch of traditional outdoor loudspeakers in the superstructure of the power plant, and it kept the pigeons from roosting in there really well until the workers decided that it was too annoying and turned it off.
Okay, yeah, you got to leave the thing on. Sweet corn in Indiana?
Indiana, yes. Maloney Corn Farm, he saw a reduction of about I think he said like 80 to 90% of his corn was viable after installing it that would have been waste beforehand.
Okay. I should explain how this works. So birds are forever twittering back and forth saying, hey, there's something delicious over here. Hey, there's something scary over there. Hey, do you want to come and share my nest? And this communication among the birds is necessary for their fitness. And the idea here is that if you make it hard for birds to communicate, they will simply go somewhere else. My co-inventor, Professor Swaddle, was an ornithologist, and he had noticed in the literature that birds tended not to roost by places that were noisy. And he and I were collaborating on avian acoustics, and he was explaining this. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I know how to make that work. And a local entrepreneur that we've been working with on other things licensed the patent, and away we go. So the idea is you interfere with communication. You don't have to know what the birds are saying, but you know the frequencies they're communicating in. And what we do is we broadcast a pink noise signal that covers those frequencies. We describe it like the cocktail party problem, where if you're in a room and a lot of people are talking, it can be kind of hard to hear, especially if you're older like me. And so in order to have a conversation, you go next door where it's quieter. It doesn't even have to be especially loud in the cocktail party. It's just that all those other people's words are filling in the empty spaces between the words that you're trying to listen to, and it makes it hard to hear. And so, one of the interesting things about this scientifically is that sometimes we're using just regular speakers to cover a large area, but scientifically we're using an interesting technology called a parametric array. Maybe you could explain a little bit about these?
Yeah, so a parametric array works by, most of them are pretty flat panels, and they produce two ultrasound frequencies, let's say 50 kilohertz and 52 kilohertz. And as those ultrasound frequencies propagate through the air, an additive or some frequency occurs, and that attenuates out pretty quickly, but then also the difference frequency occurs. So that would be around 2 kilohertz in this instance. And that 2 kilohertz signal will continue to propagate in the same beam pattern as the ultrasound in air. So it propagates very straight.
So we could make a narrow beam of sound. If you plug your iPod into one of these devices, they play music, but you only hear the music if the speaker is pointed at you. Okay, so it's a highly directional beam of sound, and we can use this technology in order to very carefully control where the sound goes. So we can blanket a particular area with the noise signal that inhibits communication, but outside that controlled area, no sound leakage, so we don't make any noise pollution. It's totally benign, never any noise pollution. Now, here's the really cool part. So Elizabeth is both lead scientist for the company, installing systems and so on, but she's doing her PhD, and here we're working on something that we think is really cool, which is
the length-limited parametric array.
Length-limited parametric array. So here's the idea. You make a narrow beam of sound, but you arrange it so that after it's propagated a certain distance, it cancels itself out. So how does that work?
So it works from interference, and how we've shown both in the lab setting and out in the real world on the sunken gardens that it's a real phenomenon. It's a real phenomenon. Yep. And what we do is we play two
ultrasound frequencies.
Two ultrasound frequencies on two speakers.
And two other ultrasound frequencies.
So you got 4 ultrasound frequencies that are making 2 acoustic frequencies, and as they interact in the air, we put them slightly out of phase, which creates interference, and then the parametric array quiets down after a certain
So this is what we think is happening.
Yes.
This is our understanding of the physics, that the nonlinear effect in 2 slightly different ultrasound beams interfere to give us a difference frequency, a narrow beam. Another pair of frequencies give us a different difference frequency in a narrow beam. Those 2 audio range beams, which are now, once the nonlinear conversion would happen, it's just nonlinear effects, and those 2 beams interfere constructively and destructively, and we set it up so that after some distance they destructively interfere, and that gives us the length-limited sound beam. Now, we say we think this is what's going on. We're pretty sure, right? We've been doing this for a while. We have a good handle on what's happening, but it's a very complicated nonlinear acoustic interaction, and to be sure what's going on and understand the details, you're doing some simulations.
Yes,
okay.
I'm doing some fully 3D finite difference equation, finite time domain, nonlinear acoustic simulations on the supercomputer.
Using a supercomputer, because you can't do this on a regular computer. No. The length scale that we're talking about is quite large, and a supercomputer, as we have, allows us to simulate these real-world phenomena. We take the equations, we discretize them, the nonlinear equations, we discretize them, 3-dimensional space and time, and then we can propagate the signals in the simulations and compare those, the output of the simulation, with measurements to calibrate the simulations, and then use the simulations systematically to figure out exactly what's going on, even though we're pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is that about it?
That's about it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm Professor Mark Hinders, Applied Science Department at William & Mary, as.wm.edu. You can find more information about the bird deterrence and other projects on our website. You also can look up SonicNets at sonicnets.com.